Hello and welcome once again to today's OWASP Switzerland meeting. My name is Robert Schneider and I'm here together with my colleagues Patrick Steger and Sven Fetsch. Today's presentation is not about OWASP Switzerland, it is about the topic you're here for. But more about that in just a minute. What is OWASP? Well, just browse the QR code you see here or owasp.org and you'll figure that out. If you're here to give something back, we appreciate that. Please add the /membership at the end of the link. Do you have questions about today's topic and you think you aren't able to get in touch with our speaker? Well, this is true, but then again not. We have a possibility for you. Either you just use the chat to your right and question us over there, or if you dislike this chat feature, go to owasp-switzerland.ch. Once there, you will see this form here. You may enter a name, but you don't have to, and your message or your question. Paddy Steger will, at the end of today's presentation, go into a discussion with our today's speaker, that is Miloš. We will get your question and we will try to answer it. Miloš, are you ready?
Yes, I hope so. Hello everyone, I'm Miloš. I work for Local Search, also known as Swisscom Directories. So it's a part of Swisscom, and I'm here to talk to you about surviving the security challenges in a small or medium enterprise. I will go briefly into the introduction of the company, introduce me, tell you about what could possibly happen, maybe things that we all know, what has to be done. I will go into that as well, and then maybe tell you why can't we just do it. So let's go on. Who is Local Search, or what is Local Search? Local Search is a medium-sized company in Switzerland, helping you and helping other medium-sized companies in Switzerland to digitalize their world and their work streams and their appearance on the internet, for example. So we are offering different products, and maybe some of them you already know. We have about 600 plus employees. We have internal developers for several platforms, known platforms such as search.ch or local.ch. And we also have external development for through specialized companies for other platforms. We are a 100% daughter company of Swisscom Switzerland. And as such, we also handle a lot of personally identifiable information, or other elsewhere known as PII. So the platforms that we are providing, some of the most known platforms are local.ch, search.ch, and Renovero. So if you want to book somebody to help you do your gardening work, then go on to Renovero. If you want to find another company's name or some people around you, go to local.ch or search.ch. If you want to book your next cinema venture, go to search.ch, etc. You get the point. So, brief introduction of me. Well, I started out as a tech guy. Ever since I was little, I was interested in technology of all kinds. I grew up with computers around me. I grew up with different technology around me. So I started, tinkering on VHS players early in my days, and continued that. I worked some time at PwC, where I discovered my interest for information security. So I thought it would be a good idea to start a post-diploma study in information security after I did some studies in informatics before that. And from there on, it was only security for me for the last, let's say, more than 15 years, basically. And in my free time, I'm enjoying different things, not so much security, but I enjoy family life. I'm still gaming. That's really a cliche. I enjoy cycling, classic cars, photography, and other things. So that's me in the office. That's me privately. And I live in Zurich. I'm with Swisscom since 2013. As I mentioned, I studied communication and informatics in Winterthur and obtained the Master of Studies in Information Security in Lucerne some time ago. If you meet me on my bicycle, then please say hi. So let's continue. What can happen? I mean, just imagine everything actually can happen. You just have to use your imagination. You just have to make sure that it doesn't happen to you or your company. It's as simple as that. But actually, it's never really as simple as it might seem. The problem is you will never be able to cover everything, all the threats that are out there, and the risks are out there are there even if you don't know about them. So just bear in mind, things can happen if you are not prepared. So your job as a CISO in that matter is to be prepared as good as you can with the let's say with a reasonable amount of effort, money, personal resources, etc. So yeah, I know that this doesn't really help you, that everything might happen, but let's try to focus what could happen or what could it look like in a big company. If you're working for a big company, then maybe you have lots of defined processes. So this can help your work actually. Maybe you have a strong governance which allows or disallows certain things like connections to the outside world or specific behavior. Maybe you have a big and strong IT department. Maybe you have people responsible for security, for data protection. Maybe you even have some security operations center, something like that. You have maybe also operative security tasks such as monitoring, alerting, CM tool, whatever there might be. Maybe you have automated security tools. Maybe you also have some provider which helps you do the things that you can't do on your own. Maybe you have an engineering department or operations department who can assist mitigating the risks, so doing the work with you or for you. But in an environment which is rather small, like local search, we do have more than 600 employees, but more than half of them are actually salespersons. So you cannot count on a salesperson to help you mitigating your information security risks, obviously. So in the end, it comes down to only a few people, a handful of people, which can actually help. And in a small company, the world looks maybe different. And eventually things will happen. The question is when and how, and are you at least able to detect what has happened to you? Maybe you won't. Maybe you will detect the problems only a few days, few weeks, or even few months later after they have happened. So let's take a look at this small company, what the setup there might look like. Maybe you don't have little or no defined processes that might help you. So everything is individual for each and every department. Perhaps you have a governance, maybe it's weak, maybe it is not existent at all. So it's a different kind of world compared to the big companies. Maybe you have a small IT department or you have outsourced IT. So the connection to your department is not as strong as in a big company, meaning you first have to go to your provider, your IT provider, open a ticket, wait for them to connect to you, and then tell them what the problem is about and let them help you. Maybe they won't if they don't have the knowledge. You have lots of operative security tasks just in a big company, but maybe you don't have anyone to do those tasks. So, there are problems, but you are, let's say, too blind to see the problems. What is currently going on in your network or in your cloud environment might be a riddle to you. You just don't know it. So it's different than in a big company. Maybe you have some engineering and operations department which are busy with their own tasks, and maybe they cannot help you with your problems. Or it's just plainly too expensive to hire somebody external to help you with whatever tasks you are up to. So from my perspective, it's really a different world working in a small company versus working in a big company. Of course, this is those are just two examples. Also, a little bit from my experience. In your area, this might look completely different. Maybe you are working in a strongly regulated area where all of this, what you want to happen, like building up security processes, security control, security department, and everything has already taken place because you have to do it. You must do it because of regulatory requirements. Maybe you are working somewhere else where there is no requirements at all. So your world might look a little bit different to mine. So let me tell you about how one of the incidents that we had a few years ago actually happened and what it was about. Maybe this is something that might be of some interest to you. So just imagine I just started out working as a CISO here at the local search. I was still in my probation period when all of a sudden things started to happen. Things like, getting phishing emails. Okay, that's actually something that happens daily. But this time it was different because the mails appeared to come from an employee of ours asking other employees to open documents. So it looks like classic phishing, but it was from an internal address, and it was like a legit email because everything that we looked at seemed to lead to the internal mailbox. So it didn't come from elsewhere. It was not a spoofing. It was really an internal address sending out phishing emails. So this struck me as a problem, actually. So mail engineering thought so as well, notified me, and then we started investigating. So by coincidence, I knew that this very employee who was sending out the emails, or this employee's account who was sending out emails, was actually a former employee of ours, left the company some weeks prior to the incident. So something didn't seem right there. So maybe you already are thinking, okay, the joiner, mover, lever process didn't work as it was supposed to. Maybe you're right with that. We'll see later. So we started resetting the Active Directory passwords after we started the investigation on who might have clicked the link. Because sometimes in the logs of Office 365 you will see such things, or you can find them out. So we started resetting these AD passwords. It worked, but soon more mails appeared because obviously somebody got hold of another account again and started out sending more of these emails. So we started resetting everyone's AD password. So you see, there's a scheme behind that. This seemed to work for a day or two until somebody got hold of other accounts, because there is always a delay in communication. Employees who were present at that time of the incident, they heard what's going on, and they knew, okay, we must not click on these links, and we must not do this and that and enter our credentials somewhere on a page which looks like Microsoft O365, but it's actually a fake page. So those were the ones, and the others who were out there, and I'm reminding you of the sales representatives, for example. More than half of the company are sales representatives, so they are busy with their clients out there, and they don't have the time to read the mails all the time, so they were not informed, and they clicked on the links. So it was spreading like a wildfire, you can say. So the mails started coming in again, the phishing mails from internal sources. So because of that, we had to implement the feared 2FA, two-factor authentication, overnight. Nobody actually wanted to make the decision to implement 2FA because of other reasons, because of complexity, because of what could happen if you implement it before that incident. But all of a sudden, it was no problem implementing that. So we did implement 2FA overnight. And I remember vividly because it was on the 15th of May, some years ago, not telling the year now. It was 10:15 in the evening, so I really remember vividly how we did that. It's somewhere in here, burned in my mind. This seemed to stop the issues, but brought other issues like people who could not log in. But those were solvable issues. Meanwhile, investigation started to find the source of the problems and why it was possible to send out such phishing emails. And in parallel, we had to deal with announcing possible data leaks to the authorities. Because just imagine somebody getting hold of your account. This usually also means that this person might enter your O365 mailbox, for example, and see all the contacts you have there in your address book, but also see your whole outgoing and incoming emails, which also bear personally identifiable information, and this might be an issue. And in this case, the back then representative for the or the responsible for the data protection and myself started preparing letters to the authorities saying that we possibly have a leak. And in the end, we figured out that it was only a handful of people affected, luckily, because there was no access to mailboxes or only to a few mailboxes. So it was really close to a disaster, let's say. And just imagine when we're talking about data protection issues now or back then, it's a different kind of issues that will come here in Switzerland, let's say by the end of 2023. Why is that? Because the new Data Protection Act also foresees penalties to individuals in a company. So not only the company itself can be punished, but individuals, decision makers in a company, if things are not implemented correctly. So no processes, no controls. This might cost you a lot of money. So it's a whole different kind of deal in the upcoming months and years. Comparable to what's in the EU, the Data Privacy Act there, the GDPR. So yeah, we had to find midterm solutions and try to implement these. So what's that? What did we do? Maybe all of you can say a few things which are here on my list. Probably all of us know what could be done or what has to be done in such a case, or even before such an incident. So I will tell you what we did. After the 2FA was in place, everything was rather quiet, which is good. But why did we implement 2FA? Well, just imagine having username and password. This is often enough to log into your mail account. If somebody finds out your password and you're reusing that password elsewhere, well, this account can be compromised as well. If you're using 2FA, this is a rather complicated issue then for the attacker. It's not completely out of bounds. I mean, you can still lure somebody into giving you the code of the 2FA, but it's less probable. Let's put it that way. Nevertheless, we started checking so-called risky sign-ins. That's a feature in O365 where Microsoft actually shows to you which users have logged in and which of those logins were so-called risky signings. For example, you are signing in here in Zurich, and 2 minutes later you are signing in Tokyo, Japan. So something's not right there. And then we started doing hardening of the O365 environment, which was really necessary because the default setup is not hardened enough. So you have to do some work on your own. And this is also a problem of smaller companies not knowing what to do and where to do it. Okay, bigger companies have those issues as well, but it's my estimation is that bigger companies do have the know-how on how to do it, or they buy the know-how. So we also started building up internal security operations. This was necessary because before we lacked an organization who could deal with such incidents. And therefore, for this specific incident, we had to hire expensive specialists. And by expensive, I mean like tens of thousands of Swiss francs a week. So you do the calculation. The specialist, in our case, found traces of several attacks or attack preparation attempts, but due to lack of logs, so we had either no logs or the wrong logs, or the logs were overwritten after a period, we could not pinpoint the source or the time when actually everything started. What we only found out is that maybe up to 4 months prior to the incident that we know of, that there were preparations and traces detected. So maybe everything started 4 months before we actually noticed. So that's a point that I brought up before. So be aware of that. Risks are there. They might manifestate even if you don't know anything about it. So then we conducted several audits and penetration tests of important systems and applications and started working on the mitigating actions there. We also conducted a ransomware check of our Active Directory and Office 365 environment especially, and started working on the findings there as well. And we started building up a new inventory solution with automated discovery functions, just because sometimes it's really necessary to know what you have and what you need to protect. And especially during such an attack, you want to know, is there any similar system that is affected by whatever problem you are actually dealing with? So we are also about to deploy a managed, let's say, an automated security solution, which is also a managed service. So we are about to do that to help us find things that we don't know of within our environments, be it on-premise, in the network, or in our cloud environments. And all of those actions came actually into mind after the incidents. There were some more actions as well. But in a small company, it can take a lot of time to implement such measures because, there's different factors to consider. I will come to these later. So not everything that is here on the list was implemented just like so. It takes time. It takes at least months. Sometimes it takes years to build up all of that or a part of it. And similar things have to be deployed for the diverse cloud solutions too. So just think of your environment. Maybe you have something on-premise. Maybe you have a cloud environment. You have to protect that as well. So some takeaways from the incident, and this is not sorted to any priority here. Having logs at all is better than not having any logs at all. So please do write logs. It can help you later on. Having external specialists is good, but it's rather costly. So establish a strategy of what you want to do yourself and what you want to hire others for. Think of that. Do a prioritization of that. Maybe you can participate in a bug bounty program because this can help you find external issues. It is not the only source of truth out there, but it can really help you. That's speaking from my own experience. Maybe also try to scan your external perimeter and check if there are any vulnerabilities, and also check things like your DKIM and SPF and DMARC records, because in our case, this also proved to be one issue. It was not deployed for this very attack, but still we found out that our SPF is not working properly according to the RFC. Then activate 2FA not only for some people, but for everyone, and try to make it mandatory. So this means conditional access. Without 2FA, you won't be able to log in. And this is maybe ultimately the goal that you want to set. Also for your administrative accounts, especially for your administrative accounts. Then maybe remove internet access for your server network and your server admins for that matter, because if one administrative account is taken over and somebody's able to do things on your server network, you will make it a lot more difficult for them to exploit your network and your servers if there's no internet connection from that very network. Do backups and test your online and offline backups. Establish a communication process, especially towards your management, for transparency reasons and prioritization. Don't forget the emergency plans, or even better, start doing some business continuity planning, and before that have a business impact analysis. So prioritize what's important for your business. The processes, the applications that are important for your business have a bigger priority than things like maybe some Teams or Slack channel. Have a cyber insurance. If you have something like that, maybe the cyber insurance can help you organize specialists when you need them. Maybe you can build up security operations, or maybe buy it as a service, or do the so-called shift left. Establish security checks while you are conducting projects or creating software configurations. So do it early. So on the left side of your timeline, I don't know if it's mirrored here. So left is on this side. That's the timeline. Do it early on. Think of security early on, and it will cost you less in the long run than doing security things at the end of your projects when you find out that you need to rewrite the software that you just created because of some security issues. So that's the shift left I mean. Establish security controls in project management or HR processes, for example. You may take out from my slides before that the joiner mover lever process didn't work well. Well, that was actually the case here. The person who left the company, this person's account was still active. The person did not return the laptop in time. So that can prove as a recipe for disaster. And maybe talk also about the issues and let others within your company, but also in such a community here, challenge you and your decisions. So not everything that we've done here might seem right, and this has to be challenged so that we can learn from it and be better next time. So why can't we just do it? I mean, it's obviously here and it's simple. So why don't we just do it? Well, time and money and knowledge might be limiting factors. In a smaller company, maybe you don't have the time because you prioritize very important projects, or you don't have the money, or you just simply don't have the people to do what's needed. The threats and risks are not understood correctly by decision takers and makers. This is something which is, from my perspective, very common. So your job is actually to translate those threats and risks into something that the management does understand, so they can make their own informed decisions about those topics. Maybe your company does not have any legal or contractual obligation to achieve a specific security maturity, so management doesn't do anything about security then, because why should they? They're not obliged to do so. So maybe you have a challenging environment. I'm reminding you of the pandemic. For example, we have had the issue that not everyone was working in one place. So the communication had to be set up differently. Maybe during such a crisis, you have financial issues. Maybe you have a lack of specialists, not only because you don't have the manpower, but also because the people are sick, maybe. So this also leads to a shift of priorities towards surviving the said issues rather than surviving information security issues. And the incidents of the past, they may have been handled just too well, so nobody actually noticed that there was an issue. And this is no joke. This is also the perception of people. Sometimes when you tell them about an incident, they were like, "What incident? I didn't notice anything." And you were like, "Yeah, well done." But still, I mean, in the end, you want the people to notice so they learn something from it. So what can you do? Well, one can say your job is done if you are doing the following. You continuously collect the information on threats, translate that into risks, inform the management so they understand the risks and they are able to make informed decisions. Job done. I wish it was so simple. Maybe in some companies it is, maybe in others it isn't. What you certainly have to do, that's my perspective, if taking a risk seems not appropriate to you, so it endangers your company, make the management aware of it, fight for the chance to be heard and avoid those risks. I mean, it's in the end, it's your job, because if something happens, nobody will ask, why did you accept the risk to the management? They will point to you and say, why didn't you shout out louder? So try to learn from your mistakes. I mean, even the things that we learned from the incident might lead to other mistakes. So try to continuously learn from that. Let others challenge you and share your experience with others, so that others can benefit from your experience. And also look for new ways to improve what you already have achieved, because security is a process and it's not a status that you are currently in. You have to evolve. And also accept it if management cannot put your ideas first, and prioritize what you want to do. Ask for money where you really need it. So where is the greatest effects for your company? Put your money there, where it will have the greatest effect. Well, now, having said all of that, I'm actually done with the presentation itself, and I'm really open for questions of all kinds. First, I will just briefly show you a slide where you can connect with me if you want to do that. So I hope you guys from OWASP don't mind showing here my Threema account, private email, work mail, work address if you want to join me for a coffee, although I don't drink coffee, but maybe a tea. And here's my LinkedIn account. And for the ones of you who are also cycling, you can find me on Strava too. So that's it. You will get the slides later on, so you don't have to write that down or make hasty screenshots. You will get all of that. Thanks for joining me, and I hope there are a few questions that I can answer.
Yes, I hope so. Thanks very much, Miloš, for your insights.
And now I don't hear you guys. Let me see. Sorry, my amplifier turned off because I had no input from you. You were silent.
So thanks again for your insight and for sharing your experience with us and part of your professional life and also your private life. And if you're into it, then I'll immediately start with a few questions we've received. So first one from Marius is, what is the measure that in your experience has the best leverage or the most leverage to improve security posture of a small company?
Well, it's a good question. I mean, I don't think that there's a very simple answer to that. What I thought was very meaningful and necessary to do is try to improve the security on that part where your identity lies. So the Active Directory in the O365, we are using single sign-on. So with the Windows login, you can reach all the different applications out there that we have, be it on-premise, be it somewhere in a cloud environment, it's single sign-on. So let the identity, your company's identity, be the thing that you secure very well, and take it from there. That's what I would approach. And that's one thing. And the other thing is also listen to your business, because I think that business needs to dictate what's important for the survival of the business itself. So bear in mind, you are probably not a security company. You are some just some business company which earns money with doing whatever you are doing. So business processes are earning the money, not security processes. So ask for a business impact analysis, or try to conduct a business impact analysis yourself. This will give you insight on what is important, which processes are important. From there, you can derive which applications and systems have to be protected very well, because they have to be available, they have to be secured, because they hold maybe confidential data or something like that. Go from there. That would be my approach.
Mm-hmm. Thanks a lot. The next one is about some clarification when it comes to the incident that you mentioned. Was it really only phishing links in the end that your guys clicked and entered their credentials there?
Well, yeah, it's a good question. That's the question that I asked as well back then. And from what we found out, it was only the phishing links, and nothing more happened, fortunately. So we were really in a situation to be very lucky that not more than that happened. So what we saw is that there was this email which seemed legit. The whole look and feel was really like local search look and feel. The link to was leading to some fake website. Okay, that's true, but it really looked like Microsoft 365, like you would share a SharePoint link, for example, and we are using SharePoint. And so people started clicking on that and entering their credentials, and bear in mind, no 2FA enabled back then. And then we investigated if anybody actually used those credentials that were stolen to log into something, some other systems, to log in onto webmail, etc. And we found only a few cases where this was where this has happened. We found no other traces of any other attempts to install something, to connect to something else. Nothing like that was visible to us. I won't say it did not happen. I assume that there was something, but we simply did not see it. So with whatever we had back then, all the logs, all the insights, we concluded that, yeah, with a certain certainty, nothing more than that happened. We had our systems checked back after that incident, and we also did all kinds of updates and hardenings, and also the usual virus scans, etc. And we also monitored some of the network traffic to a small extent, I have to admit, but still, and we didn't find anything so far. And even after a while, nothing really seemed to be off. We didn't notice anything. So I'd say maybe it's safe to say that nothing more happened, but you will never know for sure.
Interesting. Yeah, looks like you were lucky.
Yes.
To that degree. Yeah. Exactly.
And sometimes that you have to be lucky. Yes. But just imagine if something more happened. I mean, having taken over several accounts can really lead to big data leaks, for example, or to accessing data that is internal data, not necessarily personal data, but internal data on our company, on what we are doing. And a misconfigured SharePoint might give you insights that to data that you don't want to share with anybody else. So just bear in mind, for example, products like Microsoft Delve, DELVE, which are activated automatically if you're just using the 365 setup, will show everyone in your company what somebody else has done on SharePoint, for example. So this might lead to me seeing what my CEO has done, which SharePoint slides he has created, or which Excel files he has worked on. And if the configuration is not right, the access rights settings are not restrictive, I would be able to access those files, even if they should not be of any interest to me because I don't have anything to do with it. So bear in mind that a misconfiguration or lack of such configuration can also lead to interesting things, interesting behavior.
Sure. So let's take up a question from Marco then.
Mm-hmm.
He mentioned that most SMEs are still very immature when it comes to security, and they usually don't realize that protecting assets is quite essential. So also they have limited budget, and this is a bad combination, so to say. So how do you address this?
Yeah, that's one of the things that I said at the end, like put your money where it has the biggest effect. And one of the takings was also to, talk to the business, see what's really important to them. So the business processes which bring the most money have to be protected better than processes which are not as important. Maybe this is your priority. So my take on that would be to go and talk to the management and find out what's really important for us as a business to survive. I'll give you an example. If my chief sales officers tell me I can work without our Salesforce solution. We are using Salesforce, for example. I can work without Salesforce because if I create a contract with a customer, I can do it on paper. I can scan it like a week later, no problems with that. We do it the old-fashioned way and scan everything later. Then I'm fine with Salesforce not having any protective measures to ensure its stability and its availability, But if he tells me like I'm really depending on Salesforce and I cannot do anything with pen and paper anymore, everybody's just using Salesforce directly with their iPads or yoga books or whatever, then I know this has some priority there because, selling in the end is our business, So that's something to bear in mind. And as for the budget, I mean, of course, I can go to management and say like, give me $1 million or something, but they won't fall for that. They will just tell me like, yeah, what for? And then I have to explain. So make those, prepare those thoughts before you go to management. Like tell them, listen, from what I see, this and that has a priority because of. Try to tell them why it is that way, and then ask for budget. And my experience was, if you can tell them that it is necessary for this and that reason, they will listen to you, they will probably better understand you, and you will really come to a conclusion like, okay, we can give you budget for that, or we cannot give you budget for that because of reasons. But at least you have tried, and you can write down, okay, no budget today, let's try in 6 months' time.
Mm-hmm. What maybe blends nicely in here is the question from Simon, actually, who says, well, you actually implemented quite a lot of extra measures after the incident happened, as it looks like. And, well, you also mentioned that not knowing what needs to be done is actually an issue. Mm-hmm. So the question remains, how did you actually identify what your to-dos are and what are the most important to-dos?
Mm-hmm. Well, it was not my doing only. I mean, I started going around and talking to different people, engineering, for example, people who are doing the DevOps, so creating and running search.ch or local.ch or other platforms. I started talking to IT, the administrators, people who are more knowledgeable than I am, especially with the environment that we have, and people who were with the company for far longer than I have been. So I listened to them, and then I tried to make a set of measures which could contribute to improving the security, not only in one specific point, but maybe on a broader scale. And we also asked those those external specialists that we hired for the forensic tasks, for example, and dealing with some parts of the incident too, what their suggestions are in this very environment from their experience. So it was a combination of things at the end, and we didn't start with all of these things all at once. It was a process of at least 2 years. So we created a list of things that we want to have, started prioritizing them, started with some of these actions, and then we had to reprioritize because things were changing around us. So we had to say, okay, let's put that which was at the end. Let's put that first now as the next step to do, and others which were at the beginning of our list, let's put them to the end of the list because these things are not important anymore. So there's no general answer to that, but this was my take on the situation.
Mm-hmm. And maybe as a direct follow-up, the question from Roberta. Well, given you have found now all your measures, so now you actually need to sell them, and this means also you mentioned you have to translate the risks so that management understands them. Mm-hmm. Is there a trick you apply there? So, or how do you transform these risks so that they are understood?
Well, translating the risks into something that management knows is never really easy. I mean, it is not easy for me to put it in words that a specific manager understands. So what I try doing is, actually talking to them and let me explain their business to me. So let's have a one-on-one session, for example, with some of the management, and just let them talk for 10 minutes and what's important to you, so I can understand you and your what's of importance to you better. So if I understand that, then I might be in a position to better translate whatever is there into your language. So that might be one of the tricks. And another trick might be just to put in a name behind the risk. Because if you have a specific risk, you have a threat, you have a risk resulting from that, you have many explanations and blah, 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 but there's no name behind that. So nobody feels responsible. And then you put in a name and say, like, okay, from my perspective, this is your issue to deal with, or this is your issue to deal with. And then you present it to the management. Then all of a sudden they listen and they feel like, well, I wouldn't say threatened, but, they feel some pressure. And then all of a sudden things, there will be a discussion. Maybe you assign the wrong person, but in the end, somebody will probably decide on who is going to work on that risk. And then you have actually achieved what you wanted. Somebody's name is behind that risk, and that person has to do some thinking about the risk, what to do next. So this is where you want to bring them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Thanks a lot. So before passing on the chance to ask directly to my colleagues here, I have a slightly off-topic question also that I'd like to state. We have someone in here who actually started studying cybersecurity right now. Mm-hmm. What would be your suggestion for a beginner, how to start in the cybersecurity area working?
Well, it depends on what your interests are. For example, back then when I started this information security or cybersecurity in Lucerne, I was working for PwC and doing IT audits. So I was together with financial auditors, and I was doing basically checks on the IT and the processes in IT and whatever comes with that. And so I was a little bit more tech oriented than others, but still, since I was working for PwC, I was not really the guy to, sit at the console and do some hacking. I was more, talking to the company's management, maybe the companies that we audited. So my interests were slightly shifted to that part. So I actually attended everything what was there during the information security or cybersecurity courses. But at the end, my diploma work was something in the management or legal department, actually, which I never had to do with. But it went well. I thought that would be something interesting for my future work, and I decided for myself not to go the very technical way, but to go more the let's say business or management way, because I wanted to be able to talk to management and to business and be the translator between those two worlds. So I took that way. So maybe you can think of whatever is of interest to you. How do you imagine your career in the next few months and years, and try steering towards that during your studies, and then maybe find according work in your company, or maybe ultimately in another company, which can contribute to whatever you have learned, and you can contribute to that company's work with what you have learned. So maybe it's worth noticing that after I graduated there in Lucerne, I actually quit PwC, because at that very moment I was not able to actually use what I learned at the studies. So I went on and worked for Julius Baer, a private bank in Switzerland, where I was responsible for IT risk management and for information security things as well. And this proved to be the right step from my perspective. But maybe it's the wrong for you. So think of that, maybe. Technical work, business work, whatever.
Thanks a lot, Miloš. So
thank you, Miloš, for being here today.
Very welcome.
And for everyone who joined today, so thanks for being with us. And please stay tuned. We will definitely have more meetings to come. As usual, we will make announcements in Meetup to actually let you know as soon as we will have more topics for you to come. The same link that you're currently watching on YouTube, you will also be able to rewatch or also share the links with your friends and colleagues that might also be interested in the great presentation we've seen today. So thanks again, everybody, for joining. And by that, I would say I wish everyone a great evening. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Bye.